At what point does "we're growing fast" become a warning sign that operational discipline is lagging behind the scale?
There's a lot of things that can go into it, but my key indicator for saying that we're growing too fast and our revenue, our business is outpacing our operations is when the executive is saying things like, who's in charge of this? Or the bigger one is just simply everyone is waiting on the executive. Everyone's waiting on the founder. Because again, as businesses start to grow, the founder, the CEO, all the executives, they typically have the decision making power. And most executives do not delegate well. I'm a perfect example of that for my first startup. I did the same thing. And so everyone begins to wait on the founding team to say yes or no to every little decision, whether it's just buying paper for the printer. It's like the executive team has to approve it. So to me, that's one of the biggest things that you get out of growing teams to stop being reactive. And the founding team needs to start delegating and giving people a longer leash to do their job.
Such a good point. I've seen that in a lot of areas, even in larger companies that are well past the startup phase. Is like when you get to a certain point, when you're crossing those 300, 400 person things, if people don't feel like they can make decisions at all, like even about like, relatively small purchases, you're really tying people's hands for productivity because they're going to keep staying in the how we've always done it. Because especially if processes become so onerous that like nobody wants to do them. Like if you have a purchasing process that takes 15 months, is anybody going to follow that just to
Right.
actually solve something? Probably not.
Running my first tech startup, I was that logjam. I would go to my team and say, "Why didn't this get done? Why isn't our marketing working?" And they're like, "We're waiting on you to sign off on this." I'm like,
Oh,
"Shoot,
no.
it is my fault."
And then eventually you're going to lose all of your best talent because I'm not going to be in that company because if I can make a decision, then I'll just go somewhere else where they're going to be valuing my work and my decision
Yeah,
making.
Mhm.
exactly. I
That's what
mean,
I was gonna say, it's just the impact of culture that that has, right? Is like empowering and trusting in the people that are working closest with the customers that are doing
Oh,
the
yeah.
work and the impact that that has on just culture overall. It's huge.
yeah, I mean, especially in the tech world, in San Francisco, the Bay Area, it's like people want money. I mean, you need money to survive in a very expensive city, but more often than not, people want that culture where they feel valued. They want to feel like they have that authority and that their career is constantly growing. They don't want to feel like an overpaid associate.
So, Chantel, going to you, we've kind of talked about like the handoffs. So, from a revenue operation standpoint, where do misaligned handoffs between marketing teams, sales, and customer success most commonly slow profitability?
I was thinking about this a lot, and often it actually starts with a strategy issue at the top and a misalignment from strategy at the top. I know we're not necessarily here to talk about that, but I think it's one of the reasons why revenue operations has become such a thing. Is if you have a revenue operations leader there, they can hopefully point that out because sometimes you have something like sales goes and sets their goals, marketing goes and sets their goals, customer success goes and sets their goals, and they set each of those goals individually with different priorities that aren't necessarily aligned across the business. Like they might be kind of aligned, but do they actually agree? And what you're seeing with the operational handoffs then, because most of the time, I mean, it's becoming less of a thing with RevOps, but a lot of times there's still customer success operations, marketing operations, and sales operations. And each of those tools, the teams have been working in their own tools that are not the same tools, not the same project management tools. So it's kind of like that's like where I see a lot of the issues. So I would say before you even get to like some of those misaligned processes, you've got to start out and be like, does our strategy even make sense at the top? Are we all in agreement about what actually is our big five things that we're saying we're working towards? And then ideally, centralizing operations does help because now those teams are all reporting into the same structure and a leader who's over those teams is going to see those bottlenecks better. Whereas a marketing leader might just see the sales one as like the sales problem rather than seeing it as like an operational thing. So I think if you haven't considered more streamlined operations, I would encourage that. I'd also encourage a tech stack review to see where the bloat is. And there is nothing better than a flow chart in operations to see exactly where misaligned handoffs are because it's easier for people to visualize it. But a lot of times it's a system transfer issue, right? Like Marketo didn't talk to Salesforce quite the way that the sales ops team needed. And marketing ops didn't know that sales ops changed 16 fields. With customer success, a lot of times it's actually a communication issue with sales. Sales told the customer to expect XYZ at implementation. Customer success is like, we don't do that. What are you talking about? And then sometimes even within customer success, there's an implementation team and also a customer success team, and sales doesn't know the diff. So there's just a lot of pieces there of like misunderstanding, but I think most of it starts actually at the top.
Yeah, you're 100% correct with that. It starts from the top, but also I talk to a lot of my clients. They always ask about the same thing. Like, why isn't each department talking to each other? Number one, it's like there's too many specialized ops managers. At our root, operations managers are generalists. We're supposed to have our hands in everything, but we've become so
Agreed.
hyper specialized into sales ops, marketing ops, administrative ops. Rev ops kind of became that new generalist term because it's sort of weaving everything back to the core goal of making revenue. But it's also like I sit there and tell my clients all the time, like, it's kind of like dating. Everyone assumes that we should tell people these things, or we assume they know these things, yet we're not talking to each other. So when someone's like, hey, did this get done, or why isn't this done? It's like, oh, I assumed you were going to do it. The huge issue with business, with anything, and I mean, we see it all the time with dating, is the same exact breakdowns.
Another thing, right, is as companies grow, then they become pretty much like every department becomes almost as their own general manager or CEO. And the KPIs that are assigned to them are specifically, hey, marketing needs to do this and this and this, sales needs to do this and this and this. And then in the majority of cases, operations is the one that kind of like gets all of the slack, is in marketing. Hey, we're going to increase our put-through rate, whatever, by 20%. Sales, like, hey, we're going to increase our sales by 25%. And then operations says, guys, we can't do this within 2 months. We need 2 months of lead time. And it's like, oops, sorry, we've already done it. So I guess sucks to be you guys.
Figure it
Like,
out.
you guys do it. I had this conversation like in every single company that I've been in. At times, like people were just saying, I don't give a crap about you, about operations. I made my KPIs. I had to spend
Yeah.
200K for marketing and I got
And now
10,000
you're the
downloads. Yeah.
bottleneck.
Yeah, exactly. And now you're the bottleneck, right? And if by some miracle, what we actually did was we actually made sure, so I was in food delivery, right? Or I was head of our ops in the country. And we actually succeeded that. Then it was a problem again. Well, it's operations problems because we didn't get enough downloads of people downloading our app. That's why it's a problem. I was like, how is this operations problems? And it usually just goes around. And until KPIs or OKRs or whatever are intertwined, that marketing is going to take care of operational KPIs, that they're actually going to be caring about this, it's always going to be like, hey, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do that. And it's never going to be aligned.